So I proceeded, fascinated, dubious yet curious, to see my past that I had totally let go of and forgotten. Some memories I had consciously no recollection of somehow returned and came back, preparing to launch themselves again in my future past life. That ironically became my future again. Then I heard that loud voice ring out, "Think wisely, Graham, son of man, son of Adam, son of Ben of Navan, think wisely." I replied, sure, okay, won't be long now." I bent down to neatly rearrange a pair of shoes I had grasped that had somehow distracted my attention. I looked down to the next row, but oddly the shoes were missing. There was nothing there, it was bare. I thought, that's strange. I looked up to the visuals projecting, however, and to my satisfaction I had found the day. I was 100% sure. This was the best day of my life. It had all the ingredients: adventure, airports.love, daring excitement, courage, and heroism. In addition, I even got on TV. Who dares wins is an understatement, or a lesson that one should never give up one's challenge. Achievement, glory. The wormhole flashed. An orange ball, a mini sphere the size of an orange. I reached out and touched it. As I did, I could hear thousands and thousands of people roaring. I smiled. This stretched smile had been dormant for many a year. Yes, this day, I shouted aloud. I shouted at the top of my voice. I'm going to pick this day for sure. I would like 100% to return to this moment, I said, rejoicing to the angel. Then he pointed to the wormhole and said, so be it. Then everything changed. I hadn't opened my eyes yet, but it was bright, and my eyelids are not that thick. I could hear birds singing. My senses became filled with a scented perfume as my face was wedged between two pillows. I opened my eyes and lifted my head very slowly, and my heart nearly skipped a beat. I closed my eyes for 3 more seconds, then opened them again quite abruptly, blinking. Then I took another look. Momentarily distracted, I observed around the room for reassurance.
Jubilant. I felt like a player wearing my Arsenal jersey, and was even approached by a very beautiful Spanish lady. A real Zaragoza fun greeted me with a warm kiss and insisted I pose with her in a photo. I felt famous, and the atmosphere was fantastic. Regis and I never connected at Charles de Gaulle Airport because there were about 30 restaurants. The Parisians are renowned for their cuisine, but somehow Regis and I never found each other's restaurant. Landing in Paris felt like being Elvis fans everywhere. I washed my face from the lipstick kisses in the airport toilets and then proceeded towards St. Sulpice to HMV to try to get a ticket. HMV was sold out. I felt deflated and very disheartened. So I wandered over toward the Arc de Triomphe. Kind of the French were holding a war memorial moment for the unknown soldier, and it felt strangely appropriate. I was the unknown Arsenal fan, ticketless, holding a fish, looking slightly lost among the crowds. The memorial itself was quiet. 3 elderly veterans who looked about 100 years old and a brass bugle player. I sat down on some stonework and watched for a moment. Looking at my wristwatch, I made my way to the train station and took the subway toward the Parc des Princes, where the venue was set for the final pre. It was the home ground of Paris Saint-Germain FC and also the National Rugby Stadium for France. Quite appropriate stadium, built with a capacity of about 48,500 fans. And the place was thronged with riot police everywhere, cried desperately to break through the police barriers that the riot squad had set up to seal the streets. They had blocked and separated the crowds from the roads surrounding the stadium. I saw lots of drunk fans congregating, which made it difficult to try and purchase a ticket, especially while carrying a fish and all my belongings. Quickie. I noticed an old OAP washing his citroen near the exit of a large 10-floor apartment block. I thought it might be a good opportunity to slip past him and ask a tenant inside, someone friendly, if they could look after my things. I walked straight past him, pretending not to notice, and headed directly into the lobby, potted me immediately, and started yelling furiously. If he hadn't seemed so angry and most obviously mad when he threw his bucket of dirty water onto the path while shouting in French. I might have offered him the salmon in exchange for minding my luggage, but it seemed pointless trying to communicate with him. Moments later, as I walked away quickly, the old man began shouting again. However, when I looked back over my shoulder, I saw he was pointing toward a convent nearby. Clearly, behind a large fence were two very elderly nuns tending flowers in a garden within the grounds of a large building, cleaned. My eyebrows raised. I was too nervous to smile as I approached the locked gate. So I called out, "Excuse me, do you speak English?" One of the very old nuns replied, "Yes, young man. Where are you from?" "Ireland," I said, crypt. I glanced toward the end of the road where the stadium crowds were shaking the foundations of every building on the street. One of the nuns became overenthusiastic and joyful when she realized I was Irish. Irish. We are Irish too. We are both from Kells. Whoa, I said. I'm next door. From Navan, go away out of that. You are not Eddie, said the happy nun, reaching out her frail hand to take my heavy luggage. Protantly, of course, we will mind your bag, and we will put the fish in the fridge. Cat, did you catch that fellow yourself from the Boyne River, perhaps? She said, looking at the salmon. We haven't been home to Kells in over 20 years. How is it? Candid, has it changed much? I replied, still the same. Nothing has changed at all. No, I bought him in Dublin Airport this morning, I said with a sigh of relief as I handed over the salmon. Cold now. Young man, we are closed tonight, so tomorrow you can collect everything. I couldn't believe my luck. Absolutely brilliant, I said. Very nice of you to help me out. You cannot believe how much I appreciate this kind gesture. Really, I will never forget this. I nearly forgot to take something very important out of my bag. Kinda seen it, but that particular year, 1995, my mother had left and gone to London to try and patch things up with my dad. Cucked, so we had the house to ourselves. My twin brother and I had turned the kitchen into an Arsenal fan club, called. We would even play football in the kitchen sometimes just to warm up our bodies in the winter. All four walls were proudly covered with posters, newspaper cuttings, jerseys, old ticket stubs, and scarves. Quittin' when the cat's away. On top of a wooden dresser sat a collection of mini footballs in different colors, about 8 or 9 in total. Arsenal had qualified for the Cup Winners' Cup final. Plenty of midweek late nights in those days. Erred so 2 weeks before the final qualification. I suggested to some friends that we should all head to Paris to support Arsenal. After all, they had won it the year before against Parma, 1-0. I made a bet with my good Arsenal friends, Pat, Barry, Eugene Stano, English Richie, and my twin brother Ben. I said, Pat, see on top of the dresser, look at the mini footballs. I guarantee you I will throw that orange ball onto the pitch during play. Cut, he replied, you won't get tickets. Not on final day. However, that bet turned into a rumor that spread around our town. The orange ball. Before my final departure from the convent, I asked for my bag back so I could take out the orange ball. There was no chance of forgetting it. I quickly tucked it under my black leather jacket and zipped it up. Then I kindly handed my luggage back to the warm-hearted nuns, who locked the gate behind them, followed by a small bow of sincerity.
The riot police had sealed off all streets surrounding the stadium amid fears of fans clashing. The match had started about 20 minutes earlier, judging from the atmosphere inside the stadium, as the crowds roared and the energy shook the air around me. No tickets, no pubs, just one opportunity, climbing over a huge fence, was my only option to get inside the stadium. There was a car park nearby where 25 or 30 fans sat drinking. I guessed it was the closest they could get. But they were eager fans nonetheless. I stood looking at the fence. The height, the razor-sharp barbed wire rolled over the top of a 15-foot barrier. Just like a prison fence. The police patrolled the grounds in groups of 5. A little skirmish broke out in the stadium. The police started dragging a fan, beating him with their truncheons. For the first time, I became cautious of the police and their actions. I began scanning through the bars of the fence, looking for a blind spot. A Spanish fan approached, asking for a cigarette. I politely gave him one, and he kindly offered me some of his red wine. No thanks, I said. I've got to climb this fence, friend. He replied, Brother, no, relax, chill out. It's okay, don't worry, I said, turning back to wait. I contemplated my chance. My friends back home were expecting me to complete this bet. All the lads in the pubs were watching in my hometown, waiting. Pat had been right. It was just as well he hadn't come along. He wasn't good at climbing. I took my chance. I reached out, grabbed the bars of the large fence with all my strength, and pulled myself up. Cheers rang out as everyone around started clapping, which encouraged me further. Lucky for me, I was wearing a leather jacket. I leaned into the barbed wire with my weight, lowered my body carefully, and dropped down. I was in. The instant I stood up, I was overwhelmed with joy. I ran quickly into a long stepped arch full of sound, an energy that hummed from the floodlit pitch, making the green grass glow so intensely it resembled one giant neon glow stick. I ran toward the entrance faster than I had ever run before, and not one policeman followed my pursuit. Only a steward stood in my way. He had seen everything, yet he made no effort to stop me. I had climbed into the wrong section. It was the real Zaragoza end of the stadium. All the seats were full, so I sat on the concrete steps, took a breath, and looked across to where the Arsenal fans were gathered. Every time the Arsenal supporters began to chant, the Spanish fans drowned them out with loud whistles. I zipped up my jacket, slightly nervous that an angry fan might notice me, especially because I was planning on winning. David Seaman stood right opposite my position beyond the pitch. Zaragoza were piling on the pressure and had just won a throw-in. This was my moment. The moment to throw the orange ball as play was about to begin again. I stood up, unzipped my jacket, and threw the ball as far as I could onto the pitch. Every Zaragoza fan whistled loudly. For a brief moment, play was delayed, which actually suited Arsenal's defense. John Hartson picked up the orange ball and threw it out of play, and that was the last I ever saw of it. Ironically, both Naim and Hartson ended up on the score sheet in that final. The atmosphere was absolutely jubilant, unforgettable. For the police who kept walking their patrol along the perimeter fence and unknowingly gave me the opportunity not to be seen, I would like to thank them. And the nuns, and my nephew, for leaving the orange ball in my garden. Oh, and I never even got to taste one piece of the salmon. The end.